he swallowed something small and died alone on a beach. No name, no identification, no wallet. Just a single scrap of paper hidden in the secret pocket of his trousers. 2 words in Persian, Tamám Shud. It means ended or finished. And it came from the very last page of a rare poetry book, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. But that book, it had vanished without a trace. This is the beginning of the Somerton Man case, one of the most perfect mysteries in modern history. On December 1st, 1948, at dawn, a man was found lying against a seawall on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia. His posture was calm, almost peaceful, feet crossed, head tilted back, as if he has simply fallen asleep while watching the waves. But he wasn't sleeping. He was gone, and he left behind no clues to who he was. Only clues to what he wanted erased. His clothing told a story of contradiction. He wore a high-quality, perfectly tailored gray suit, the kind worn by professionals or diplomats. His shoes were polished to a shine. His fingernails were neatly trimmed. His hair was combed. Everything about him spoke of discipline, grooming, and care. And yet, every single label had been cut out. From his shirt, his jacket, his trousers, even his socks. Someone, perhaps the man himself, had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure that if his body was found, no one would know his name. When police arrived, they assumed he was a local who'd had too much to drink. But the autopsy told a different story. There were no signs of violence, no broken bones, no bruising, no defensive wounds. Yet inside his body, toxicologists found evidence of a fast-acting, undetectable poison, the type used by intelligence agencies during the Cold War. His spleen was massively enlarged. His liver showed signs of chronic stress. His eyes and stomach contained traces of a substance that left no trace in standard tests. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't natural causes. This was a deliberate, silent exit. And then there were the witnesses. A couple walking along the beach the night before saw him sitting alone on the sand. He was staring out at the sea, motionless, lost in thought. At one point, they watched as he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small object, perhaps a pill, perhaps a capsule, and swallowed it. They thought nothing of it at the time. It seemed like a private moment. Now, it's one of the most chilling details of the entire case, because within hours, he was dead. But the real mystery began weeks later. A detective re-examining the case file noticed something odd. Buried in the man's trousers was a tiny rolled-up slip of paper. On it, those 2 words, Tamám Shud. Curious, the detective tracked down a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. And there, on the very last page, was the phrase, printed faintly, almost like a whisper. But here's the twist. The original book that contained this phrase was later found in the backseat of a parked car, miles from the beach. And on its final page, someone had written a string of 50 letters in neat block capitals. MTBI, MPA, NE, TPMLIA, BOAIA, QCITGQUP. To this day, no one, not the CIA, not the NSA, not teams of cryptographers with supercomputers, has cracked this code. Some believe it's a one-time pad cipher, the unbreakable language of spies. Others think it's the first letters of a love poem known only to the man and a secret lover. A few suggest it's coordinates or a list of names or even a chemical formula. But after 75 years, it remains silent. The case might have faded into obscurity if not for one final clue. Sewn into the lining of his suitcase, a small leather case found near the body, was a hidden compartment. Inside it, nothing. But on the outside, written in faint pencil, was a phone number. And that number would lead investigators to a woman who claimed she knew him, but refused to say how. This is where the story shifts from mystery to human drama. Because the Somerton Man wasn't just a body on a beach. He was someone's lover, someone's friend, someone's secret. And for over 7 decades, his identity remained locked behind a code, a book, and a single red rose left each year on the spot where he died. Welcome to the Unseen Case. I'm your narrator, and today we're diving deep into the enigma of the Somerton Man. A story of love, espionage, and a silence so complete it echoes to this day. As the 1950s dawned, Australia found itself at the heart of the Cold War. Soviet embassies operated in Canberra. Radio transmitters were discovered hidden in lamps and furniture. And into this world of spies and secrets stepped the Somerton Man. A ghost with no past, no name, and a code that defied logic. Posters of his face went up in post offices, train stations, and police stations across the country. Newspapers published detailed sketches. Yet not a single person came forward to claim him. No family, no friend, no co-worker. It was as if he had been airdropped onto that beach with no history at all. But the intelligence community took notice. Why? Because in 1948, a man who could vanish so completely, with no paper trail, no identity, no digital footprint, though there was no digital world then, was either a master criminal or a master spy. The code obsessed them. During the height of Cold War paranoia, unbreakable ciphers were the backbone of espionage. If this string of letters was a message, it could reveal dead drops, double agents, or even assassination orders. The FBI opened a file. MI6 in London ran it through their best cryptanalysts. Even the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, ASIO, admitted they were stumped. The letters stood like a wall, impenetrable, mocking. Then, in 1959, a breakthrough, or so it seemed. A former Australian Army nurse named Jessica Thompson came forward. She was in her 50s, reserved and hesitant. She admitted that the copy of the Rubaiyat found in the car was hers. She said a man she knew only as Alfred Boxall had given it to her during World War II as a token of affection. When police tracked down the real Alfred Boxall, they found him very much alive, living in Sydney, and in possession of his own copy of the book, its final page intact. Jessica's story collapsed under scrutiny, but before she died in 2007, she whispered to a journalist, "I knew who he was, but I can't say." And in her personal effects, researchers found a phone number, one that matched the number written on the back of the Somerton Man's suitcase. The connection was undeniable. Yet she took the truth to her grave. The plot thickened with history. Australia was a key ally for both the US and UK in the Pacific. Soviet spies were known to use Australia as a transit point. Was the Somerton Man a defector, a double agent, or a man running from something far more personal? His physical profile suggested intelligence, well-educated, multilingual, technically skilled. Autopsy photos showed a man in his 40s, fit, with signs of manual dexterity, the hands of an engineer or radio operator. Decades passed, the case grew cold. Then, in 2009, a woman named Jo Thompson, no relation to Jessica, made a stunning claim. She believed the Somerton Man was her father. Her mother, she said, had a secret affair with a mysterious man in 1947. The timing matched, the description fit. And most importantly, she had DNA, a hairbrush with her mother's hair, and a lock of her own. Professor Derek Abbott, a physicist and engineer at the University of Adelaide, took up the case. He believed modern DNA technology could finally solve it. But Australian law presented a barrier. Testing on human remains required family consent. And since the Somerton Man had no known family, the case stalled. For years, Joe waited. The world watched, and the code remained unread. Then, in 2022, after relentless lobbying, Professor Abbott received permission to extract DNA from a single hair preserved in the police archive. They compared it to Joe's maternal DNA line. The result, a strong match, not direct, but significant enough to suggest she was his daughter. With that, they had a name, Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne, trained in radio communications, fluent in several languages, and who vanished without a trace in late 1947. His profile fit eerily well, but there was no proof he was on that beach, no travel records, no witnesses, no confession, and the code? Still unsolved. Some now believe the code isn't a cipher at all, but the first letters of a poem by Omar Khayyam. Myself when young did eagerly frequent temple and brothel, and all I knew was I might find the pathway to another new. When tested, the initials matched the code almost perfectly. If true, this wasn't a spy's message. It was a lover's farewell. A man, heartbroken or hunted, saying goodbye to a world he was leaving behind. The Rubaiyat wasn't a tool of espionage. It was a comfort in his final hours. Yet questions remain. Why cut the labels? Why the poison? Why choose that beach? And who was the woman who received the book? The answers may lie in one crucial detail. The original Rubaiyat had its final page torn out, and on that missing page, some believe, was the key to everything. The Somerton Man isn't just a cold case, he's a mirror. He shows us how much we've changed and how little we've truly solved. Even with DNA pointing to Carl Webb, the South Australian government has refused to officially name him. Why? Because in the shadowy world of espionage, circumstantial evidence is never enough. And perhaps that's exactly how he wanted it. In 2023, researchers used advanced facial reconstruction and AI aging technology to create a video of what the Somerton Man might have looked like alive. They released it online. Within 24 hours, hundreds of people contacted authorities claiming it was their father, uncle, or grandfather. Each lead was investigated. Each one faded into nothing. The face remained a ghost. So why does this case grip us so deeply? Because it represents the ultimate unknown in an age of total visibility. Today, we leave digital footprints everywhere, in our phones, our cars, our bank records. To vanish completely is nearly impossible. But in 1948, a man could walk onto a beach, swallow a pill, and erase himself from history. That kind of silence is both terrifying and beautiful. The Somerton Man reminds us that some truths are not meant to be uncovered. Some stories are meant to remain incomplete, not because we lack the tools, but because the mystery itself is the message. He chose to disappear, and in doing so, he became eternal. Today, his body lies in an unmarked grave in Adelaide's West Terrace Cemetery. His suitcase is displayed in a museum. The code is taught in cryptography classes around the world. And every year on December 1st, someone leaves a single red rose on the seawall where he was found. No note, no name, just a flower, a silent tribute to a man who mastered the art of vanishing. As for you, what do you believe? Was he a spy, sent to deliver a final message before self-destructing? Was he a lover, ending his life after a heartbreak too great to bear? Or was he simply a man running from a past he could no longer carry? Drop your theory in the comments. I read everyone. If you want more deep dives into unsolved mysteries, hit subscribe and tap the bell. Next time on The Unseen Case, the Dyatlov Pass incident. 9 experienced hikers flee their tent in minus 30 degrees Celsius. Barefoot, half-dressed, and running into the snow. Some had fractured skulls. Others had internal injuries with no external marks. What terrified them so badly, they'd rather freeze to death than stay inside? Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't out there in the world. They're buried in silence. Thanks for watching The Unseen Case.